Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how we're going to convert the planning into a VB.NET program. Later on I can have a look at Java and C programs as well. The steps are more or less the same, depending though on the programming language. So for this purpose I picked program 6 from lesson 2. We've already done the planning. I've published that a little while ago. So we've got the input variables, the other or temporary variables, as well as the output variables. Only thing we can add, because the user interface controls are now part of the name, part of the planning. So to get input, we're always going to use a text box. So that would be txt, the prefix for a text box, and then book price. And the same for the number of books, txt, number books. So we use exactly the name of the input variables. We add a prefix txt. For other variables, there's no user interface control. No input or output are displayed on the screen. These are used for internal calculations. I'll show you how. I've got one output variable. Output is going to be displayed in a label always. So I will start with LBL and then order price. Okay. These names, I can color them in yellow. They're now fixed. I've selected what they are. I need to use them throughout the program. So keep that in mind. I didn't design the screen on Word or on Excel or anything like that. Paint. But we're going to use just for the input and the output horizontal layers. I'll show you. Okay, so step 1 would be to create a new project. I'm going to save this in lesson 2. Do make sure that you always have a really nice format in which you save your data so that you can retrieve everything. So nice structured. I'm going to call this program 6 book orders, and if you are writing any code, please always add your student number to the name of the project. So I'm gonna leave it like this, program 6 book orders. Okay, now I've got my screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure the title is correct. For that purpose, I'm going to first click on the form to make sure the form is selected, and then I'm going to scroll up and down until I get to the text property. Currently it says form 1, so I'm going to change this to program 6 book orders, and when you're a student again, add your data. So I'm just going to, for example, add my initials, and here we talk to the user. So use nice spacing, capitalization, everything that we need in a normal program. I've got 2 input variables, the book price and the number of books that the user needs to give me. So those would be the first fields that I add. I'm going to add one label and then a text box for it, a second label and a text box for that. So here I'm designing the screen and I'm putting all the controls on the screen that's needed. I've got one output field So that would be the order price. I'm going to add a label and another label to display the actual price. I'll look into the actual names in a moment. And now I'm going to put 3 buttons onto the screen. Nice, neat, like that. Okay, I need the 2 input labels, one for the price per book and one for the number of books. So I can just as well use those description names. Okay, so my first label, top right, will not get a name. I'm going to leave this as label 1. This label is there for a description only onto the screen. There I've got my text field, and I'm going to call this price per book, like that. The second label will be used for the number of books. Normally when we talk to the user, it's a capital for the first word, and these labels are just written like that. And the very last label is used for the order price, like that. Leave the text and everything else exactly as you need it. I need to go and specify a name for the text box. We've already specified the names that we want to use: TXT book price, TXT number of books, and label order price for the controls. So those exact names I'm now going to give to the controls. And I like to first change all the text, and now I can enter TXT book price, exactly what I've specified. The second label, TXT number books. And for the last label, the name must be LBL order price. I need to change a few more things for this last label. I've changed the name. I need to change the border style to fixed single so that it's got a line around it. I'm going to change auto size to false, and then lastly I want to delete the text in that label so that I've got a blank block. I'm gonna change the screen a little bit like that. It's really a lot nicer if all the labels that gives a description. So these labels, just to repeat, that gives a description, I can leave the names as it is. I don't need to change it. But all the controls will get a proper name. And for the label that is going to display the output, I changed a few settings. I first of all changed the name, there, label order price. Then I changed the border style to fixed single. Then I changed auto size to false. Otherwise this label is going to become very, very small. And right at the end, after I changed those 3 things, I'm going to change the text property to nothing. So nothing is currently displayed to the user on the screen. Let's now go for the 3 buttons. So the text property of button 1, I'm going to say calculate order price, and normally we're going to have a look, capitalize every one of those words. Button 2 can become my clear button, and the third button will be my close button. And I'm going to resize all 3 of them so that they are exactly the same size. If I keep my control key in, I can select more than one control, and all of them now can become one size. So let's just do it like that. A little bit bigger, and I'm going to just space them neatly onto the screen. Nice horizontal line. I also need to go and change their names. So for button 1, I'm going to prefix it with button, and I already said I want to call this button calculate price. Always call this button calculate and tell me that what. So we can also call it button calculate order, right? Or order price. Any one of those names would be good. So button 1 becomes button calculate order. That would be button BTN clear. And the last button, I'm going to call this BTN close. So use a standard screen like that. Don't worry too much about the font, anything like that. We're not going to add funny fonts, funny colors, funny anything for now. Standard screen like that. It's got a nice title. It's got all my input and output controls and 3 buttons. One to calculate the order price, one to clear, one to close. Okay, and this then concludes the screen design. If I go have a look in the properties, I can see that all my controls have got names. So I can see button calculate, button clear, button close. The form is just called form 1 for now. I've got label 1, 2 and 3, and that's fine. Those are the 3 descriptive labels onto the screen. I've got label order price for my output and 2 text boxes for the input. So you can just verify that everything has got a name right at the start. Next I do would be to just increase the font a little bit. Tools, options. I'm going to use a slightly bigger font so that you can easily follow anything and everything on my screen. Let's go have a look, see what 20 would do. That's it. I'm satisfied with that. Okay, so F7 changes between the design and the coding. So design is the screen, what the user will see. The editor where I add the code, this is the real programming. And we're always going to start with a comment right at the top of the class. So go tell us this is unit 1, lesson 2, program 6. Purpose of the program, just a short sentence, calculate the order price for books, and you're going to add your author detail, and if you've got a student number you're going to add that, and we're going to add the date that this program is written. So 4 May 2021. That's the first thing you do. Second thing you do is to switch on the options. Option strict and option explicit. This will help you as a programmer, as a beginner programmer. In VB we have this option to check, to specify, check that I'm doing the right things at the right times. Okay, and this is really what the options would do. Other languages are strict, it's always switched on. You go do that because it's going to help you tremendously. After you've done that, remember Control S to save quite often. It's a lot shorter than to say file save. You can use the shortcut key Control S. Now at this stage we'd like to add the coding for the buttons. So I'm going to double click on each one of those buttons to open up what is called a event procedure. So this is the part where I write the instructions for the button, what the button must do. Each one of those buttons, and I've already named the buttons so it's nice and descriptive. Have a look. If I place a button onto the screen and don't name it and then click, I have button 1 and nobody knows what this button is supposed to do. So don't do something like that. I'm simply going to delete the event procedure for this button 1. I'm not using it. It's simply an explanation, and I'm going to delete the button on from the screen as well. Button close is rather easy. me.close. That's what you're going to write at this stage. This close in programming terms is a procedure that's already coded that you're just calling, and this will close the program in the proper way. So you don't need to do a lot. You can just say, hello Mr. Close, come do your job, close my program. Clear? I'll look at it in a moment. We actually already have the steps that we want to take for the button event procedure. So at this stage I'm going to take these steps, and before the event procedure I'm going to add them as a comment for every one of the things that we need to do. This will make your programming life a lot easier. So calculate the tax amount. I'm copying the next step. I'm not going to copy the formulas right now, only the steps. And then the very last step would be to display the order price. So I'm adding all my steps that this button must do, the English version of the steps, I'm adding now. So my program must do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We'll have a look at the code, the exact code, in a moment. Okay, so step 1 says declare the variables. I already have all my variables specified. It's the yellow ones on the left hand. Let's change the color to green. Oops, that didn't work. Let's try again. Now you can easily see. So these variables I need to go and define. I've got them on paper, so now I need to go and define them for the PC. In VB, I start with the word dim to specify I'm going to declare a variable. Thereafter, I need to give the name and the type. So number of books, will it be an integer, a double, a decimal, a string, a character? How many books can you buy? 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, eh? So that would be an integer. Then I need the book price, and for any price it's best to use a decimal. I'm going to add all my variables. Take note, I can comma separate if I've got more than one decimal value. So tax price, for example, and order price. I can comma separate the values to specify I want total book price and tax price and order price as decimals. So I've got this option to either define them on a line on its own, like that, or I can comma separate them. If I comma separate them, I get to specify the type once. So it doesn't really matter how you'd like to do that. Next, I'm going to go for all my constant values. So in the program, some fixed values were given to us. These we wrote down, and let's go and change. We like to play with colors, so let's go and change them to blue. These are my fixed costs. So all the fixed costs in the program, those that were given in the problem description, I'm always going to write as constant values in the program. So const, not dim. Dim says I want a variable where the data changes. Const says fixed value. So shipping, and I can specify as decimal. And no rand sign, just simply the value that we've got. And over here, because I've got my options switched on, Visual Basic is warning me. It says 12.5 I see as a double, but you want to store it as a decimal. I can simply go and add a D at the end to say, specify, this must be a decimal. I want to do calculations with money, so I'd rather use a decimal. I'm going to also specify constant, my tax, and this is a percentage. You can use double, but because calculations with decimals, once I start with a decimal, it's just a little bit easier to stick to it. A lot easier like that. Okay, and again, I need to add a D. So, I've got a green underline under each of these variables. This is a warning. This says, oh, you've got a block in memory, but you didn't use it in your program. That's fine, because I've just started with step 1. Declare the variables. I didn't do anything with the variables yet. So this is step 1 then. Declare the variables. Some people like to include this step in the program. So instead of coding it there, we've got to declare the variables. Then the next step, then the next step. I must say I prefer it right at the top, but it's really up to everybody personally how they like it. One day when you're going to work, your company is going to have set standards. Always code the documentation as follows. Okay, so my next step says get the book price and the number of books. So these I'm going to get from the input variables. I'm going to specify the following. The variable where the data must be stored on the left hand side equal to And if I start with txt, that's what the prefix say useful for, I can just go and pick which one of those text boxes to use. So what I say over here, take the text that the user typed into the number text box and save that in number books in the variable. You must be careful. Can't be just the name of the text box. That would be wrong. Currently, because I've switched on the options, there's a little bit of a warning again. If I open up the editor warning message, it says options strict says you can't just go convert from a string to an integer. The data types are all different shapes and sizes. So the text from a text box is a lot bigger than the integer variable that we have over here. Just want to show you this. I'm going to comment out the line and I'm going to run the program. So over here's my screen. So the user can now type in, let's say 150, 55 per book, and the user wants 7 books. This data that the user types in is stored in what is called the text property of the text box. A text box has got quite a few different properties. We're going to use the text property from now. So text means whatever the user typed into the block. So if I write a statement like this, txt number books, it says which block, and .text means the things that the user typed into the block. Take that, save it in the integer. Now, the data on either side must be the same type. The text property is always string. This is an integer. There's a quick solution though. I can say replace the code. Replacing the code just left, right and center won't work always. But in this case, that line that was added says take this, that's a string, and convert it to an integer. And now I can save the data in the number books text box. So convert to an integer. So to get the book price, I'm still busy with step 2. I'm now writing the VB code for the English step. I already got the number of books. The VB code for that would be this line over here. So take from the text box, convert to an integer, save it in that variable. If I do the same for the book price, txt book price dot text, moment that I press enter, it says, oh, warning, warning, you can't just convert from a string to a decimal. So I can say, okay, replace with a convert to decimal. These are functions in VB. For now, you don't need to worry too much. It's just going to convert whatever is in the brackets, in this case to an integer, and in that case to a decimal. It converts it automatically to the right type for me. And this is step number 2 that's done. Get the book price and the number of books. Step number 3 says calculate the total book price. I'm going to leave a line open, and guess what? I've already got the formula that I want to use in my planning. I can just replace that with a formula, and I've used all the names correctly. So I don't need to change anything. So step number 3, I need the formula to calculate the total book price. Step number 4 says calculate the tax amount, and again I've got a formula already. So all the calculations goes together. So tax amount, oh boy, there I can see a difference. Here I called the variable tax price, there I called it tax amount. If I go back to my planning, it's got to be tax price. That's what I've specified I want to use. So let's just go and change that. It's got to be tax price. That's the variable to use. So I've already wrote the formula for step 4 in my planning. I can literally just add the formula now. Step 5 says calculate the order price. And I can see that I've got again the same name. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to add that there. Change the word amount to price. So those are all my calculations. That's the calculation for the order price. And now my last step is display the order price. When I want to display something, I will display it in a label. Already named the label order price. I will always display it in the text property. So that's a nice easy hack for you. If you get input, on the right hand side of the assignment statement, you've got the text box .name.text, and you are going to save the data in this variable specified on the left. So exactly the same happened on the second line. Where I'm going to display the output, I need the label name .text, and on the right hand side I've got order price, and the easiest way, order price itself is again going to give you an error message because order price is a decimal and this is a string. So it's got to be the same type before I can put it. Before I can put order price into the text property, I need it to be the same type. So if I specify toString, it converts it for me. But the toString method is nice and clever. I can specify give me currency formatting to 2 decimal positions. That's what the C2 means. It says convert using whatever settings is on the local PC. So if your settings are set right, it will show a rand sign. If somebody in America executes this program, it would show a $sign. If somebody in Europe goes and execute the program, it would automatically show the euro sign. So for the country, as the PC is set up, it would show the correct currency, and the 2 means up to 2 decimal positions. And guess what? Step 5 is now completed. So let's have a look. Step 1, declare all the variables, specifies all the names that we coded, and this time around you need to pick the correct data type. So for prices we always use decimal. I've got 2 fixed values in my program. They will be constant values, and the naming over here using all uppercase will tell other programmers that they are fixed costs. They're going to stay the same always. In VB, I need to specify this as a double by adding a D at the end. Then I go along with the steps that I've already written. I should have spent quite a bit of time using these steps. For a beginner, This is now in English, which you should be able to use. So here you need to have the steps in the right order, doing the right thing, and figure out all the formulas to use. So when you get to the programming part, you've got the steps and you just need to write the programming part for the steps. So declare the variables. We're going to take all the variables that we've already specified and we're going to add types to it. We add it to the program. Then get the input would always look similar to this. The text box name is on the right hand side of the assignment. It's .text, and then the variable where the data must be stored goes onto the left hand side. And have a look in the planning we specified. We want to use txt book price for the text box to save the data for the book price, and having a consistent name. So using exactly this variable name, just adding txt in front, will make your programming life a lot easier. So input will always be in this format. The what type to convert to, the program is going to choose normally for you, and we can just say yes. This means convert from a string to a decimal, from a string to an integer. Why a string? The text property stores its data as a string. And now the three calculations are added. Calculate the total book price, the tax amount, and the order price. And I've got to write the formulas for each one of these lines. So what's the formula to calculate the total book price? I've done it in the planning, so now I've got a lot less work when writing the program. Calculate the tax amount, and then lastly calculate the order price. And right at the end I need to go and display my output. So to display output, I will display it in a label. So it's name of the label .text, assignment statement, and the variable that stores the data on the right hand side. And when it's a number, I need to call the toString method. If it's an integer, I can just leave this out. But for prices, I'm going to add C2. If it's something like a temperature where I don't want to add the currency, I can specify N1 for 1 decimal position, N3 if I just want 3 decimal positions, like that. Okay, this then completes my calculate order button event procedure. I've got one more event procedure to code, button clear. For button clear, we're always going to take all the input and output fields on the screen. So that means 2 text boxes and 1 label for this program. We're going to delete what is in them, and we're going to put the cursor on the first input field. We do it as follows. txt book price, we can say .clear, txt number of books, .clear. So clear is a procedure. You're going to learn about that a little bit later. That deletes everything that's on the screen in this variable. I need to do that also for the label. Label doesn't have a clear method. So here I need to specify text, and the text must be nothing. Have a look, no space, just simply begin double quotation mark, end double quotation mark to say no string at all. And then for the very top input control, I will specify call the focus procedure as well. This will put the cursor on it. And all that remains is the testing part of my program. So I can run the program. Let's just move it to the different screen. And now this is where VB or Excel is so nice to us. I've got some test data that I've already calculated. We always need test data to test the program. This program as it is useless if I didn't prove or check that it works. So if I say the price per book is R502.50 and I need 3 books, I calculate the order price. And there it specifies 1,776.75, and that's exactly the same as this value. So yes, the first test data checked out correct. If I click on the clear button, I can enter the next test data, 158.45, 4 books. Click on the calculate button, and again I'm going to compare this result to my test data. This test data can be on paper or on an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't matter. On paper is good. So yes, it checks out. It's the same value. So 261.30 and 5 books. That's my third test data. If I say calculate, it gives me the correct data, 1574.35, 1574.35. Okay, so now I've checked that the program works, that my formulas used in the program is correct as far as possible. So that's what the test data is used for. I just want to show you, if you, for example, had a formula that were wrong in the program. Let's just say subtract the tax 0.15 instead of multiplying it to get the tax price. So if I've got a wrong formula in the program and I run the program, let's just open up my program as well. I need to move it. So if I now go and specify 502 Rand 50 per book, there's 3 books, and I click on calculate, then have a look. This order price here is totally different from the value that I calculated manually. And now I know there is a problem. I need to either check my program and I need to check this calculation as well. I can clear and I can enter the next data set. And yes, that's also different from there. So now I know this is what the test data is used for, to test if the program gives the right result. So currently I know, go check your formulas. Now this one is easy because I've created a wrong formula manually. Very often when you write your code, your formula might be unintentionally wrong, and you're going to struggle quite a while to get the correct data here. I will show you debugging a little bit later on. Need to go and carefully have a look at all your formulas and everything that you do. Okay, this concludes this video. I've shown you how to write the program from the planning. Thank you.